Mr. President.
Senator from Rhode Island.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me thank Senator Udall for his timely remarks and his great leadership. And I rise today to add my voice to his voice and so many other of my colleagues in calling attention to the growing threat of climate change and to encourage the Senate to take meaningful action. First, let me join all of my colleagues in recognizing and thanking my colleague, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island. His tireless work to raise awareness about the devastating impacts of climate change have truly made a remarkable difference in our country and around the world. Senator Whitehouse comes to the Senate floor every week to tell us why it's time to wake up. And I'm pleased to be able to join him as he gives his 200th such speech. These 200 speeches provide at least 200 reasons why we should be acting quickly and decisively to address climate change. Just one of those reasons, which I would like to highlight, is the impact of climate change on our national security. Climate change acts as a threat multiplier, exacerbating other problems in unstable areas around the world. It is already creating conflict related to a lack of resources, whether it be access to food, water, or energy. I was just traveling through Djibouti and Somalia, adjacent to Yemen, and one of the great crises in Yemen is not just the conflict on the ground, it's a water crisis that is causing massive drought. And then I moved on up to Jordan, and there, speaking with our representatives, water crisis in Jordan also, another threatened drought. These national security problems are in climate problems, and these climate problems are national security problems. And when it comes to our national security, decisions are made through a careful evaluation of risk, and we must be sure to include risk caused by climate change. So it is particularly troubling to me to see that the current administration is instead choosing to ignore the reality of scientific consensus by removing all references to climate change from documents like the National Security Strategy and the National Defense Strategy. The Department of Defense must be able to execute its missions effectively and efficiently, so it is disconcerting that climate-related events have already cost the Pentagon significant resources, measured in both monetary cost as well as the negative impacts on military readiness. In fact, Secretary Mattis, who understands these issues very well, and despite the official publications of the Department of Defense, speaks very candidly and directly, has declared before the Senate Armed Services Committee, in his words, where climate change contributes to regional instability, the Department of Defense must be aware of any potential adverse impacts. Climate change is impacting stability in areas of the world where our troops are operating today, and the department should be prepared to mitigate any consequences of a changing climate, including ensuring that our shipyards and installations will continue to function as required. Across the globe, we see our forces in contact. They are there in the Horn of Africa. They are there facing not just radical fighters, but drought and environmental issues. And here at home, we have shipyards and naval bases on the coast that are seeing rising waters that are going to cost us hundreds of millions of dollars to remediate so they can continue to function. If we don't respond, if we put our head in the sand to the issues of climate change, our national security will be engendered. I was very pleased as the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee to support my colleagues when they were included in the fiscal year 2018 National Defense Authorization Act, a direction to the Department of Defense to conduct a threat assessment and deliver a master plan for climate change adaptation. That was a bipartisan bill led by Chairman McCain, supported by vast members on both sides of the aisle who understand that climate change must be addressed. It also codified several findings related to climate change and expressed the sense of Congress that climate change is a threat to our national security. We are on record as a Congress saying that national security is jeopardized by climate change. That has to be embraced by the whole of government, not just the Senate or the House acting together. I must commend our colleague, Sheldon's colleague and my colleague, Congressman Jim Langevin of Rhode Island, because he pushed for the same measure in the House of Representatives, and he was successful. And just like other threats to our national security, it is critical that we recognize, plan for, and take steps to address climate change. Combating climate change may not seem as urgent as other threats we are facing today, but I would argue otherwise. And if we don't begin to take aggressive action to protect ourselves from the effects of climate change, we will face ever-increasing and severe consequences. Because of his clarion call to pay attention to climate change, Senator Whitehouse is advancing our national security interests in an important way. And I stand here to commend him and thank him. And I thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor.